Former Clark County Public Administrator Robert Tellis has been found guilty in the murder of Las Vegas Review-Journal reporter Jeff Gehrman. Thank you so much for joining us on Channel 13 at 3. I'm Abel Garcia.
And I'm Darcy Spears. We have been following this trial closely since it began over 2 weeks ago. The verdict coming down just after noon today. Right now, we're in the penalty phase of the trial, and we've already heard from the families of both Robert Tellis and Jeff Gehrman. We're going to go back live to the courtroom now, where the hearing is ongoing.
Of forgiveness. The question then becomes, will there be this opportunity of redemption? What's going to happen in his life now? You've heard pretty compelling evidence, testimony from his family. You've seen the pictures. He's a loving dad to his natural children and those that aren't. He's got a work ethic. He's intelligent. He can learn. You know, the sentence that you decide, this connection that will leave this indelible mark on his life, how's it going to affect his family, his children? You've heard the evidence. We respect your verdict. What happens now? Give him the opportunity, give those children the opportunity at one time, decades from now, the opportunity to have their father back, their stepfather back. Maybe even his mom will be alive at the time when he's released. Let her have the opportunity to have her son back. It's a heavy burden. The judge has instructed you. Obviously, you're duty bound, as you have been in the initial phase of this case, to follow those instructions. Allow for there to be mercy in this determination. He's not going to speak to you through this course. Given the posture of this case, he's maintained his innocence, but don't punish him for that. You know, he's exercised his right to go to trial. This is what makes this country so great. You know, trial by jury, trial by our peers. Hold the state to their burden that's occurred. You've passed your judgment. Please don't punish him for exercising his constitutional right, which is one of, again, these ideas that we adopted from this old English common law and that our founding fathers embedded in our Constitution. Please don't punish him for doing that, for holding the state to its burden. And they've done an exemplary job presenting their case. You've done an exemplary job reviewing the evidence. But now the question as to the appropriate penalty. What is it? It's not life without. The man has no criminal history. He's 48 years old. He's led an otherwise exemplary life. Put himself through school, worked climbing ladders, doing HVAC, raised kids. He's involved with his daughter's diabetes. He researches it. And even now, as he sits in custody, he's been a hands-on father. You know, oftentimes we deal in the criminal justice system with these recidivists. You know, people that commit crimes over and over again and they just don't learn. You know, that's an appropriate sentence, life without. That's what you give a man that doesn't learn from his mistakes. That's what you give a man that continues to break the law, puts other people in danger. Given your decision, you have found that he's committed a crime, and now the question is, what's the appropriate punishment? I mean, I know firsthand, you apply to the bar, you have to give up every traffic ticket. If you're tardy and get expelled, they know about it. He was a licensed attorney. I'm not in any way saying that makes him a better person, but it shows that he had the wherewithal to put himself through school, to learn, and he had the background that allowed him to become a lawyer. That's gone. Give him a chance when he's an old man to maybe be around his grandkids or for them to be around him. He has a lot to give. Regardless of what's been proven in this case, regardless of what's happened, he has more to give. Locking him up, throwing away the key doesn't do him any good. It doesn't do his family any good. It doesn't do our society any good. Show him mercy, please. I'd submit to you that as a society, it's the appropriate thing to do. Thank you.
state may address the jury.
Thank you. Just take down. Can I proceed? Thank you so much.
Now, Abel,
Well,
we
I'm touching
just
a few
heard
things.
Attorney Robert Draskovich speaking, Telus' defense attorney,
I think what
asking
you've seen over
the
the course of
jurors
this trial, and
to
you
exercise
listened to
mercy,
at
and
least
we're
in
about
this
to listen
case.
in as the prosecutor
When crimes like this are
pleads for
committed,
probably the strongest
they have
possible
a ripple
sentence.
effect.
Most certainly.
No one wins when crimes like these are committed. But one of the things that has to be abundantly clear about this is we're only here because of the actions of one person and one person alone. And it's the defendant. It was the manner in which the defendant chose to handle the situation that has created this ripple effect on his family as well as Jeff's. One of the things, when you do this long enough in our line of work, you see a lot of people come through the system. And the state would submit to you, he is not similarly situated to a lot of people. He is highly educated. He comes from a good, loving family. I'm not saying everyone does, but his upbringing is pretty good. When you think about the situation that he was in, the world wasn't going to end. He had simply lost an election. And the way Robert Telus chose to handle this was devastating. And it was his choice and his choice alone. No one forced his hand. And so one of the things that we need to talk about is this idea of what they mentioned, retribution, redemption versus retribution. When you think about what happened in this case, think about the act that he committed upon Jeff. What was that? It was an act of retribution. Robert Telus decided to be judge, jury, and literally the executioner of a man who was simply trying to do his job, to report the news. He executed him. He didn't have to do that. But that is how Mr. Telus felt it was appropriate to deal with this situation. And he has taken this man away, essentially, at that time, the patriarch of his family away from his family. And why? Because he simply wasn't happy with what was being written about him. That is an extraordinarily serious thing to be considered when you evaluate what is the appropriate punishment. Because this is the way Mr. Telus decides to handle things when he feels slighted. Another thing that the defense brought up was there needs to be a measure of atonement. We agree, atonement is appropriate in certain circumstances. But think about this. The defendant, when he got up and took the stand, was willing to sacrifice the reputations of a company like Compass Realty, the employees that work for Compass Realty, members of the Public Administration's Office, multiple members, specifically Detective Gaddis, Detective Jappy, Detective Mogg, members of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, their DNA lab, even the District Attorney's Office. Why? All to save himself. The state would submit that that is the length that he was willing to go to save himself. And it needs to be considered when you're evaluating what is the appropriate punishment. That's a really scary thought. I want to address something else. What is the appropriate punishment? The state would submit to you that life is an appropriate punishment. Whether it is an eligibility for parole after 20 years or life without the possibility of parole, I'm going to leave that to you. But I want to at least explain to you why the state believes a life sentence is appropriate. One of the reasons is, what did we learn about this case? That Mr. Tellis decided to exact death upon someone who he felt slighted against. And he certainly has shared all the different people he feels slighted against. The beauty of a life sentence is even if he's eligible for parole, if he gets out, he'll always be monitored. Because there is a future of dangerousness going forward. If he truly believes that all of these people did something to him, then there is a risk that something like this could happen again. It should be considered. Another factor as to why we believe life is appropriate. I don't want to paint it in too broad of strokes, but we cannot, or the state doesn't believe that we should ignore the fact that what happened here was literally a journalist wrote a story or a series of stories and lost their life over it. Because someone or a politician, outgoing politician, just did not like the consequences of the writing. That's a pretty serious thing. That doesn't happen very often, and it should be considered. Which is why we believe life is appropriate. At the end of the day, whether parole eligibility is something that you wish to grant, we'll leave that up to you. But at the end of the day, he was a highly intelligent person with a loving family, with a good background, who really did have his future ahead of him. His life really wasn't over. But he let probably his ego, his pride, get in the way, and it manifested itself in the worst possible way. And we have lost one of the most significant journalists we've had in our community in the world of investigative journalism. So we thank you for your patience and your time. And we wish that you consider these factors when evaluating which of the three punishments are appropriate. Thank you very much.